the Black Anglo-Saxon, your favorite neighborhood political scientist. Welcome to another episode of From the Hood to the Hill. Today we are going to be talking about Karmelo Anthony and unfortunately the fact that he, yes, deserves to be in jail and to be in prison. I think that with all of the fanfare, with all of the emotions running high, I think that we have to have a conversation about being able to agree in sentiment, because I do feel people sentimentally, but logically, I want us to approach this in a way that makes sense given our particular environment and how we're going to have to navigate this moving forward, and that this should be a reflective moment. Now, Karmelo Anthony definitely deserves prison time. And I say that because we have to understand that despite the system not working in our favor, it does not negate the fact that what he did was wrong, that what he did was in fact and will in fact create a charge. Now, is murder excessive? Absolutely. It should have been bumped down. But again, which we'll talk about later, this is America. And we know what America is, or rather we want to believe we know what America is. Because the campaign for this moment shouldn't be free Karmelo Anthony. It should be jail everybody else who has come in front of these judges and have been acquitted, whether it be George Zimmerman, whether it be the kid who stepped out there with the rifle in Kanoa, I forget his name, or whether it be anybody that was in those e-files, which is why I understand the sentiment, but the campaign shouldn't be free Karmelo. The campaign has to be jail those people who we are talking about. And I get it. I understand that the system does not work in our favor. But we have to either accept or we have to continue believing. And the reason that I'm saying it that way is because if you truly understand what this system is, if you truly accept what this system is, I don't know why in anybody's right mind did they ever think that that case was going to end in anything else other than a egregious, excessive charge. Because if you are going to say America is what it is, which I agree with you all, I pulled up this illustration because it further speaks to similar cases where people have gotten less years based on in the same circumstances. And what I want to talk about in that particular thing is that what we have to understand about the law is that based on the county that you're in, based on, yes, your skin color, based on the judge that you get, all of those things compound on top of each other. So when I was going through my sentencing process, right, there are many of people who get arrested for DWIs, involuntary manslaughter, etc. I, for most people, got a light-handed deal. There were judges who were in that docket who my attorney did not necessarily want me to go in front of, just based on their experience and based on their interactions with DWIs. And then in some cases, you had judges who just wanted to hand out a number of years because essentially that's their stat, how many years they've handed out over the course of their tenure. And so you have to factor in that piece as well. But the answer is not free Karmelo. The answer is accepting what America is. And I'm talking about true acceptance. Because nobody in this situation, nobody in this moment should be visibly enraged. Because If you truly believe, if you truly understand, if you truly know, and I'm sorry, not believe, the emotional response is tapered. I'm not going to say I don't feel anything, but it's tapered in the sense that I did not expect any other outcome than the outcome that we got. When it came to child, I did not expect any other outcome except the outcome that we got. But that for me does not change the fact that, yes, you have to do jail time. When it came to my situation, people reached out to me and was like, Devon, what do we want to do? Devon, we ready to do this. And I told you could ask my wife, don't do nothing on my behalf. Help me when I'm trying to build the community. Help me when I'm trying to actually do something good. This is not the moment that I need support because I am dead wrong in this situation. And that leads me to talk about my point and the fact that this is, as much as people don't want to talk about it, a failure of our community on the behalf of the Karmelo Anthonys of the world. Because Karmelo Anthony is an avatar for young black boys everywhere. And I want to say black boys because we hear the adultification of people talking about Karmelo Anthony as if he's this grown man, this murderer, which he's not. He's a little boy who, yes, in the heat of the moment, made a very, very awful decision that has led him to find himself in the very system's hands that you all have said is the utmost racist. But the reason that it's a failure on our community is because, and I can speak for myself too, in a swath of young men, young boys who I know personally, and it's representative in the statistics across America, in that we are not prepared, we are not guided. Our everything in our manhood, boyhood, however you want to frame it, is exploited. I had somebody leave in my last comment from on my last video that men need to man up. We need to do these things that are inherently quote unquote patriarchal, even though we are deemed a threat by our own community based on the same feminist propaganda and patriarchal fight that we're having in our community at this very moment, which has left young boys vulnerable to make stupid decisions, to make and put themselves in situations that they do not have a understanding of how far down the line this may affect your life based on you having your masculinity, manhood, or however you want to frame it, being exploited over time in our communities. Because we don't incentivize the good kids to be good. I've seen it too many times where the good kids turn bad because the bad kids get more attention. And yes, Karmelo Anthony is wrong, and we have to accept that. Because if it were any one of our children, that is an egregious response to somebody putting their hands on you. But it is very, very run of the mill of our community to respond egregiously. Somebody step on your shoe. Now it's a fight. I look at somebody too long, walking down the street. Now you want to do something to me. We have all of these situations where, again, it's cool to act out and perform this level of aggression because it is rewarded in our community. The fleecing is rewarded in our community. But when it creates situations like this, where we have a young man who has now been sentenced to 35 years, everybody is upset. And I get it. I really do. But we have to also hold ourselves accountable because we know what we're dealing with. We know what this society is, and we understand everything about it. But with that being said, that means that we have to act accordingly. And even in my own situation, that's why I told people, no, I was stupid. I got to eat that beef. But again, when I'm outside doing the right thing, I don't have the same level of support that I had when I was going to prison. I don't have the same level of supports when I was getting straight A's in school than when I started slipping and getting C's. And everybody says, oh, well, Devon, we know you're a smart kid, because the smart kids are left off to themselves. And people say, oh, well, they'll make it. And they're left to their own devices. They get no guidance. They get no love. They don't hear what they need to hear and be moved where they need to be moved before we have situations like this where we leave them in the hands of the same demons that we fighting. Because yes, I do agree with you all, but we have to begin taking accountability for us. And I want to move into another point, because this is the difference between knowing, understanding, and believing. I've had conversations about this in prior videos about toxic hope, because too many of us understand what we're in, know what we're in, but continue to bury our heads in the sand in the desire that something will change without work, and that you can just quote Jay-Z and watch the finals and do all of this extracurricular stuff. Meanwhile, we're in the trenches. We're in the moment that is creating a new structure, a new order. And everybody else is also mad. And this is what I mean by interrogating your logic and interrogating your isms, because everybody's saying right now, oh, well, this is what happens when you have an all-white jury. This is what happens when Black people aren't allowed to be able to be within the legal system. And look, this is why I say we need to be monolithic, and this is why I say we aren't a community, because we don't have any shared values, and which doesn't create systems and which doesn't create order. Because the problem with this situation is, in the Karmelo Anthony case, was that we had Black jurors who removed themselves, recused themselves due to impartiality. So they were honest in saying that they couldn't make an unbiased decision. Why didn't those Black people lie? For some fake moral good? That's a failure on us. Then I need you all to understand that you aren't mad at the fact that we didn't have an all-Black jury. What you need to be mad at is the coalition that you put together is a failure, because we didn't have Black people on the jury, but it wasn't an all-white jury. The problem that you all should be really, really thinking about and reflecting on is the fact that you made allegiances to people who have no allegiance to you, because there were brown people on that jury. And then in the child case, there were Black people who didn't stand their ground and acquiesce in a jury decision. And child's representation was Black. These are the things that I talk about when I say we need to be monolithic. Because if y'all really want to do this, and you really want to have a real conversation about fighting the system, we got to have standards. We got to have consequences. We got to have direction. We got to have vision. Because your equation doesn't check out. Because in the child case, they had Black people on the jury, and it still failed. It still failed. You want to know why? Because we don't have a standard. Because we want to assimilate. Because we don't know how to stand on business. We don't know how to stand on the square. And for attorneys, the only thing I'm going to say about attorneys is I don't really have a stake in that fight because I understand that attorneys are legal mercenaries. They are just largely for hire hitmen when it comes to the legal arena, and that's the nature of them, and that's why you hear me talk about them in the way that I do, because I do understand that most of them don't have a moral compass. Most of them have devolved themselves to just the interpretation of the law and getting the bag however they can get the bag and being a tool and an asset to the institution. Most of them in this current moment do not see themselves as actual advocates of anything. And that's how I feel about that. If you're not an attorney who has that particular stance and position, kudos to you. I appreciate you. But for the larger bulk and majority, they mercenaries. They go where they hire. They go to the bag that's the biggest bag. So even though I feel that way, that's another line of logic that doesn't check through. And we have to keep all of these things into reason when we're talking about, oh, we're going to boycott this, or we're going to boycott the Asian community, or we're going to boycott that community. The question that I have for us is, what are we going to do with our own? How do we create the system, or where do we want to create the system, rather, as to how we deal with our own people who say, I'm not going to do jury duty because I can't make this impartial decision. What do you mean? Just lie, bro. Hell yeah. Matter of fact, he's a nigger. And guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go in there. Nah, I don't know. I don't know what you do. It's kind of shaky. I mean, based on this case and that case, Judge, I don't know. It's not making sense to me. We just had a dude 2 weeks ago get off. Why is this not stand your ground? And whether you know that or don't know that, but why not? So we just recusing ourselves? And nobody sees that as a problem? You just want to jump straight to the fact that there was a white and off-white jury, which is, you've heard me call them off-whites because they are assimilators, not out of hatred, but because, again, they don't have an allegiance to or even understand what American racism is at the level that it operates. And I can say all of this and still say that, yes, Karmelo Anthony definitely deserves prison time. Does he deserve 35 years? But stabbed a person. Yes, it was an accident. Stuff happened in the heat of the moment, but you still got to be held responsible and to those outcomes. And again, I get it. We are upset because it doesn't happen for other people. And if he would have got off, I wouldn't be upset either. Because that would be it just operating in a consistent way. Because y'all hear me what I say. Look, it's the Wild Wild West, baby. But part of the reason you're mad is because part of you still believes in this nonsense. That's what it is. Part of you is still holding on to it to get that visceral response from you. Yeah, it's bullshit, but come on now. If this was on FanDuel, would you have took the odds against it? Like, let's be honest. Would you have bet against the outcome of what the outcome was if we had the opportunity to bet on that outcome? As messed up as that sounds, and I'm really not trying to be that person, but I really just want y'all to think about what it is we're talking about. Because I don't think that people really think about the whole thing. And from the bottom, if that's the case, why are we not protecting young boys before we find them into these positions, or before they spiritually die off, before they can ever become men? Because, oh, y'all don't care. As long as they can beat somebody up for you, pick something off the top shelf, do some of the manly patriarchal things that y'all swear that y'all trying to fight against, nobody cares. That's the truth. And if it's not your truth, then walk away from it. But That's in larger part the truth. And the other piece to that is this is what I mean by we have to get better at having nuance in terms of how we think and how we navigate. Because we're having these very flat arguments, and I need y'all to understand that people are using your rage, using your upsetness, using all of the emotional capital that is being poured into this moment to monetize it. Because the same people who are getting you all riled up don't care. And again, the fact that I have to keep making disqualifiers speaks to the infantile nature of our community. I'm not talking about you, but y'all know exactly what I mean. Everybody don't care about Karmelo Anthony. Everybody don't care about that child who got gunned down by a child. They don't. I intentionally didn't say his name because we have so many that it happens. We get mad, we get upset, and then we move on. Now we talking about Jay-Z at the Roots picnic. We watching the NBA finals. We doing this, we doing that. But when does it get to the moment where we say to ourselves that, nah, we actually have to stop. We actually have to slow down. We actually have to pinpoint this and be proactive, because as much as America is hot garbage for how it conducts itself in its kangaroo courts, in its shoddy legal systems, we too have a job to do as a community in terms of making sure that we protect our own from being in situations like that. And this is not to put any blame on the parents or anything like that, because I don't know them. But I'm talking about this from the aspect of people don't protect young boys before young boys find themselves in situations where they're either spiritually, mentally, or physically in danger. They don't care about you until you self-delete. They don't care about you until you remove yourself or you're removed. Our counterparts don't not understand that you are the most unprotected because your counterpart is the most targeted. And you take part in that in some case. And I did a whole video on the elders. I'm not even going to. The elders can't even use that word. I'm not here to relitigate anything. Y'all can say what y'all have to say. But the reality is he was wrong, the system is wrong, and the community is wrong. That's why I talk about American culture in the way that I do. It's all twisted, it's all perverted, it's all just upside down. Which is why we continue to see the same outcomes over and over and over and over and over again. It's the culture. It's the ethos. I do the same thing with my son because I tell him to stay on his toes, because so many people want things to be simplified. And I need you to understand that getting too much oversimplified information does not do you any good. It actually conditions you to be taken advantage of and fleeced. If you don't understand something that I'm saying, look it up. There have been plenty of moments where I've been in rooms and people are using jargon to exclude me. And guess what? I carry around composition books. I write it down and I look it up. I talk about things in a way, one, to have a different perspective, because so many people are just talking about stuff to just talk about it. But I want people to understand the systems and everything that operate in and around it. And sometimes I cannot simplify past the point of diluting what it is. Because I have heard brilliant people give very, very poignant points in very sharp, precise measure. But it goes over the audience because to understand that precision, you have to know what's being removed. That's why it goes over so many people's head. You think you're digesting it, but you're not. But This is tiring. I wasn't going to do this, but it is what it is. It's another day in America. Again, it's not shocking or surprising. It's run of the mill. It's the standard. And we got to actually get to the core of the issue, which is the culture of it, which is being more aware, being more insightful, being more reflective, and actually consuming valuable information. Treat information like calories. You gotta make sure you get your macros. Empty calories, they calories, but they're not all the same. And I'm gonna just leave that.